Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang terhormat Bapak dan Ibu dosen Unri, dan terima kasih telah menyempatkan saya Dita Permatasari dengan NPM 17106310 akan hasil dari penelitian saya untuk tugas akhir dengan judul Speaking Anxiety in Virtual Classroom Presentation. How did senior high school students experience it? Presentasi ini akan menampilkan lima aspek, yaitu background of study, literature review, methodology, findings, and discussion. Yang pertama akan saya sampaikan yaitu background of study. People whose good skill will enable themselves to complete in their daily life, moreover speaking in foreign language. The reason why I choose this topic is that speaking skill has an important role in social interaction, education, social life, and career since they are knowledgeable. To get the good skill in speaking for some students is not easy. To keep the big challenge for students to get good proficiency in speaking anxiety. Speaking, they have limited vocabulary, language structure, and speaking confidence. From the big challenge that the students feel inside when speaking anxiety, when speaking English, they have limited vocabulary, language structure, and speaking confidence. They also have an anxiety which enable them loaded to speak in the target language. Presentation is one of the activities in classroom in the pandemic atmosphere. The virtual presentation is not easily practiced. Giving presentation in front of the class of the virtual, I will be a problem for some students who have lack of confidence. As a non-English speaking country, learning English have been a challenging subject for Indonesian students as they learn complex language merely in class. Mukminin et al. 2015. And also, the teacher needs to know the source of their anxiety to cope the students and encourage them to do better presentation in front of the class. Padlan 2000 to 2020. And from the based on the background of the study, the previous research suggested be able to be more expert in exploring and updating the research because the previous researcher only focused on students' perception on speaking anxiety in virtual classroom. Almira, Rahmawati, and Farida 2018, Rafada and Madini 2017, Kaisar and Mauduri 2020, Unar and Kurtuldu 2020. It is clearly different focus with this study that focus in investigating students' experience on speaking anxiety in virtual classroom presentation. To fill the gap, this study updated research concerning on speaking anxiety in a virtual classroom presentation context. And the research question in this study, there are two research questions. The first is, how did the students experience on speaking anxiety in a virtual classroom presentation? And the second is, how do the students manage speaking anxiety in virtual classroom presentation? And the purpose of the research, the first is to investigate how the student experience it on speaking anxiety in virtual classroom presentation, and the second is to figure out the um, to figure out the way to manage the speaking anxiety in virtual classroom presentation. The second chapter is literature review. The first is uh, there are 4 points include speaking anxiety at EFL classroom. The second is the impact of speaking anxiety. Next is oral presentation in virtual classroom. And the last is manage the speaking anxiety in virtual classroom. As, as we know, the first is speaking anxiety at the EFL classroom. As we know that speaking has the ability to speak, to process information, and also to communicate with each other. Speaking also one of the most significant part of language learning. Suryani 2015 state that speaking is used to express meanings so that other people can make sense of them. In the other word, speaking is a tool directly come to idea of productive skills. It is an interactive process of convey meaning by expressing feelings, ideas, opinion, information to other people to be involved in communication. The second is the impact of speaking anxiety. Anxiety experienced in communication in English can be debilitating and can influence student adaptation to the target environment and ultimately the achievement of their educational educational goal. Woodrow 2006. Anxious students may be the start in paying attention to what needs to be learned, processing information effectively, retrieving information, and demonstrating skills that have previously been learning. And the third is oral presentation in virtual classroom. Gedera 2014 stated that with the significant growth of e-learning, teachers and students explore new ways of constructing knowledge and enhancing teaching and learning experience outside the walls of the classroom. A presentation in virtual is one possible assistance to help enhance communication skill in language teaching. Virtual usually feature a notice board for an announcement, course outline in system email service, class and assignment. And the fourth is managing speaking anxiety in virtual classroom. Practice 2021 reported there are some strategies to manage speaking anxiety. The first is be flexible as a matter of practice, not exception. The second is reframe communication as a skill of the many, not just the few. The third is build a community of support and success. And the third chapter is methodology. Research design. Uh, I use narrative inquiry as a research design because it is appropriate with this study and to in, investi- investigating the student experience on speaking anxiety in virtual classroom presentation. The research site and participant in this study, I took two participants in second grade in senior high school students because in this grade, the students are very prone to have anxiety during the classroom presentation. The data collection, I use interview and documentation. The interview use semi-structured interview and ask several questions about speaking anxiety in learning English virtually and use documentation to support the data of interview. And the data analysis, in this uh, in this research, I use thematic analysis, and the first step is familiarizing the data. The second is generating initial codes. The third is searching for terms. The fourth is reviewing the terms. The fifth is defining and naming of the terms. The sixth is producing the reports. And the fourth chapter is research finding. Entering there are three findings obtained in first research question and two findings to obtain the second research question from the interview data and documentation. The first is the student have afraid feelings to speak English. Second, the question and question, the student were thinking nothing while it was to time to starting in speaking. And the third is the question and answer is the question and answer session is the big challenge for students in virtual classroom presentation. The fourth is supporting action to keep in the virtual classroom presentation is important recommendation to students who feel anxious. And the last is the students reduce the anxiety with getting more practice. In the first point, the answer from several respondents stated that presentation have some effect to students in English in learning English. One of them is make the students feel afraid in virtual classroom presentation. Based on mentioned interview transcription, it is clearly stated that presentation make students feel scared and confused what to say when they have to speak English in front of other people, especially in virtual classroom presentation. The second point is anxiety has a big influence when students presentation in classroom. It makes the student thinking nothing and confused about what to say when they doing presentation. Refers to interview transcription, it is clearly that students are blank or nothing, thinking nothing, while students thinking in the virtual classroom presentation. However, every student has a different anxiety, so it's up to them to respond that anxiety in order to get maximum result in presentation. And the third point of the result is classroom presentation activities have one session that used to exploring what the audience of presentation asking about the material deeply. It is question and answer question. It is a question and answer session that the student consider that the biggest challenge is during presentation in virtual presentation. From the statement of interview, the student who have prepared the material when it comes to presentation, but they still felt that question and answer session is the biggest challenge because they don't know what the audience will student in virtual presentation. The fourth is to minimize the feeling of students' anxiety. They need something from either to trust their to do the presentation. The student have the way to convey it based on is it based on the experience they have in virtual classroom presentation. Uh, the fifth is difficulties in speaking speaking course. Uh, Student practice and learning speaking to improve the student have to express the speaking. It is uh, with the practice and practice is important aspect to make the student is they are in learning speaking. They stated that to reduce speaking anxiety is doing the practice. The difficulties in speaking practice and learning speaking to improve what the student have to express the speaking. Uh, Based on the interview transcript, it is shown that the students are trying to no longer feel anxious in virtual classroom presentation. Speaking continuously by themselves it is one way to attempt the practice before this classroom activities held. Based on the findings, there are discussion speaking anxiety in virtual in presentation give some experiences for students. There are many experiences that shown by the student reaction when interviewer asks with some question. It is strengthened by Jul Hernanda, Burning and Murni 2018. Such feelings have been shown to cause panic, tension, helplessness, fear, distress, shame, inability to cope, sweaty palms, restressed stomach, difficulty breathing, and loss to ability to concentrate. And the second is in the virtual classroom presentation, the students feel some sense in the situation. The stronger of the sense is feeling scared to speak English while in online classroom atmosphere. It support from Buddha and Mamun 2020 study that panic is one kind of feeling anxiety. And the third is anxiety is the one problem of the students feel that presentation in virtual classroom presentation not only feel scared but also the students feel blank or thinking nothing and confused about what they have to say in virtual presentation. Many of us have been in situation as language learner when we are asked a question and our minds mysteriously go blank, become empty. Husnia 2017, Julhernanda, Gurning, and Murni 2018. And the next is in managing the students' anxiety, they have alternative ways to control their fear, support from their friends, or uh, teacher is one important strength to their self, included sustenance, suggestion, and evaluation. It is appropriate with Pyramida 2009 teacher-student relation, making fun of a wrong answer was not accepted, and a norm of mistake tolerance was uh, rectified. And the last is the students show the other ways to keep their confidence to exploring when speaking when classroom presentation held. The students believe to keep the presentation with backing up the anxiety while the classroom presentation it is work. It is also claimed by Keramida 2009 teacher immediacy, both verbal and non-verbal types is of immediacy behavior were employed since they can reduce anxiety and impact positively on motivation to learn. And I think is enough from me. Uh, I'm sorry for some mistakes. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.